still a baby in the sport, still got learning to do, and I think fighting Eubank Jr. will should be anything bigger than it was last time. I just don't.
Joe Gallagher's recent comments have turned heads, shaking up the narrative around Conor Benn's readiness to face Chris Eubank Jr. Gallagher didn't hold back, calling Benn a baby in the sport, suggesting that his inexperience puts him nowhere near ready to challenge a
They gave so much in that fight, and maybe not for the purists because it was a street fight, but to the mainstream audience, it was a fight that crossed.
Seasoned fighter like Eubank. He also warned that Eubank, heading into a potential rematch, will be bigger, stronger, and even more dominant. The reality check? Benn's not at that level yet. He's playing catch-up, while Eubank continues to shine. The fight was a brutal eye-opener. Eubank's savage resilience and mental toughness were on full display, even as he battled through a painful cut without flinching. He stood tall and composed, thriving in the chaos. Meanwhile, Benn appeared like a wild brawler, throwing punches without much strategy or control. There was no boxing clinic in sight. It looked more like a street fight. Eubank showed why. He's built for war, while Benn was exposed for...
Like I said, Conor Benn's a young man, so he's only going to improve from that. He's developing still as a fighter. Chris Eubank Jr. had a long career, a very long career, and he's been around a long time, and making 160, clearly...
lacking the discipline and control that elite fighters possess. Spencer Oliver also weighed in, praising Eubank's composure under pressure and highlighting it as a key factor in his victory. Despite Benn's loss, Oliver made it clear that Benn's potential is undeniable and that he's still young in the sport. His journey has just begun, and his improvement is inevitable. However, Oliver pointed out a significant issue for Eubank. His long career may be catching up with him. Making 160 lbs is becoming increasingly difficult for the seasoned veteran, and the question remains, can Eubank continue at this high level, or has Father Time finally caught up? Oscar De La Hoya, adding another layer to the conversation.
You have to follow the weight classes. You have to follow directions and orders, and that's why we have weight classes. For 1 pound makes a huge difference. I mean, this guy was almost fainting trying to make weight.
Emphasized the importance of weight classes in boxing. He pointed out the extreme lengths some fighters go to in order to make weight, even suggesting that weight cutting can be dangerous, affecting a fighter's performance and health. His comments underline the risks that come with extreme weight management in the sport, pushing fans and fighters to consider the true cost of cutting weight. The tension surrounding this rivalry is building. As De La Hoya warned, the pressure is mounting on both fighters, and the next chapter is just as uncertain as the first. Benn has talked about fighting anyone between 147 to 160 lbs, but let's be honest, he's still far from elite. His ability to handpick opponents doesn't impress, and it only highlights how far he is from competing with the best.
Conor Benn can fight anybody from 147 to 154 to 160. Conor Benn can fight who he wants. Both of them can almost handpick who they want to fight.
On the other hand, Eubank Jr. stands at another level. A true veteran with the grit, skill, and mental fortitude to take on any challenge. Chris Eubank Sr. also pulled no punches when discussing the aftermath of his son's fight with Conor Benn. He was brutal in his assessment, stating that Benn was hopelessly outmatched from the moment the fight began. Eubank Sr. blasted Benn's reckless weight-cutting tactics as a disgrace to the sport, calling them deceptive and damaging to the integrity of boxing. He had nothing but praise for his son's strength, preparation, and ability to overcome any tricks that Benn might have tried to use. The fight underscored that size, power, and discipline would always dominate, and that Eubank...
We saw that Junior is too big a man. These weights that they are flouting they're destroying the fight.
Junior was simply in a different class. Harlem Eubank echoed the sentiment, tearing into Benn's cocky attitude and lack of preparation. He pointed out that Benn's pre-fight bravado made his loss sting even more, as his performance was far from the hype. Benn's lack of focus was exposed, showing he wasn't ready for the magnitude of the challenge. Harlem confidently declared that a rematch was inevitable and would serve as further proof that Benn is nowhere near Chris Eubank Jr.'s level. Finally, Johnny Nelson weighed in with an honest assessment of the fight, acknowledging that it was closer than the scorecards might have suggested. He gave credit to Benn's effort, but ultimately reinforced that the fight revealed just how much work Benn still needs to put in.
It was, I think there's a rematch in the contract, so there's no doubt that they'll run that one back and do it.
Eubank Jr.'s dominance and resilience were undeniable, and while Benn's potential is real, he still has a long way to go to compete at the elite level. Johnny Nelson praised Conor Benn's bravery for stepping up to 160 lbs, a weight class that was unfamiliar to him, and acknowledged his resilience and skill throughout the fight. However, Nelson pointed out that the defining factor in the showdown was Chris Eubank Jr.'s vast experience at the world-class level. Eubank's superior conditioning, boxing IQ, and championship pedigree ultimately gave him the edge, despite Benn showing immense heart and determination. Nelson believes it was Eubank's experience that tipped the scales in his favor, securing a well-earned victory. Eddie Hearn, on the other hand, expressed disappointment in the outcome.
A really good fight. I think it was a lot closer than what it was. Commend Conor Benn immensely because he put on an amazing performance. Remember, he's a welterweight. Never really boxed at world-class level at 160 or around there. Chris has more experience on the world scene than Conor has. Conor did himself proud. I think the right man won.
Revealing that he had expected a much closer result. Possibly even a split decision or a draw. When the unanimous decision was announced, with scorecards reading 116-112, Hearn became immediately skeptical. He felt the fight had been far more competitive than the scores indicated and criticized the judge's decision, insisting that Benn's performance deserved more credit. According to Hearn, Benn had pushed Eubank to his limits, demonstrating exceptional skill, determination, and heart throughout the bout. He argued that the scorecards failed to properly acknowledge Benn's resilience and the Bank's level. Mackenzie felt Eubank had won by at least 3 or 4 rounds, despite the close scorecards. He emphasized that neither fighter was complaining, especially considering the massive purses they both walked away with. Eubank pocketing $10 million and Benn earning $7 million. But for Mackenzie, it wasn't about the money. It was about earning respect in the ring. He made it clear that this wasn't a circus fight but a genuinely hard-fought, competitive contest that was thrilling to watch. Mackenzie highlighted how Eubank stood firm throughout the fight, proving himself as the true winner with no controversy overshadowing his victory. Michael Buffer, clearly electrified after witnessing the clash, labeled it as one of the most thrilling matchups in recent history. He was captivated by the explosive atmosphere generated by the contrasting styles of the two fighters, making the bout an unforgettable spectacle.
Benn was never going to beat him. The fight wasn't close for me. I made Eubank win by at least 3 rounds, maybe 4. And, they're not crying about it, neither of them, mind you, because, I think Eubank was on 10 million guaranteed, Conor Benn's on 7 million guaranteed. That's ridiculous money, and I'm not going to say it was a ridiculous fight. It wasn't a ridiculous fight. It was an entertainment.